to part 3 of Anxiety with Attitude. We've been doing Anxiety with Attitude because this series is focusing on rebuilding self-trust. We're rebuilding trust within us because it's a strength. And as you rebuild strength in yourself, the question doesn't become, can I or can't I trust the world outside of me? It becomes a question of, I can and will be able to see trust. Sorry, not a question. It becomes more of a statement of, I am building trust, so therefore with trust inside of me, I can see automatically that I can trust the world around me. It becomes a place and a community more trust-based rather than fear-based. And anxiety is very much based on fear. We talked about our first aid kit, which is in another video. Now, in the first aid kit, we talked about how the anxiety is a mismatch in your brain between the way your brain thinks the world ought to be and the way your world is. So what we're doing now is building trust into us so that we can correct our brain when it goes, well, you need to be afraid, you need to be anxious of what's going around. You're able to say, well, no, it's not. I don't need to be. I can have trust and faith in the decisions I'm making for me in the now. It is partly behaviour management and it's partly building a deeper sense of you. So we've been using Brené Brown's acronym BRAVING to help us build up self-trust, and I love it because she in great length explains how trust is not just about one word trust. Trust is multiple words that make up trust and multiple actions that make up trust. This week, week 3 is accountability. And in accountability, it says, I trust you if, when you make a mistake, you're willing to own it, apologise for it, and make amends. So that makes somebody else trustworthy. And when I make a mistake, I am allowed to do the same. We need to focus first on us being allowed to make mistakes. Let's work on the experiential side of trust, the things that we want to do this week to build more trust into our lives. One of the first things and important things I learned some time ago is that we can't change anyone else. So we need to be the change. Now, in that meme that goes around that says this, I think it's important to understand that we keep doing for others, hoping that they'll change. It's like our hook in. We have to be prepared to say, I can't change them, no matter how much I do. So I have to stop doing and I have to build the trust in me that I can make the decision not to do. I have to let them go and adult in their life, their way. And that's one of the challenges of life, is seeing that somebody could be doing a healthier way of life and you have to say nothing. You can only say something or speak into somebody's life if they give you that permission. And someone will only give you that permission to speak into their life if they're willing to change and grow throughout their life. If they're not, they'll get pretty cranky at you for offering advice about their situation. So just be very careful and very discerning as to who you offer advice to, whose life you speak into, and the people that you let speak into your life, make it a very, very conscious choice who those people are. The suggestion is, or the current research is, have 2 to 3 people that are very close to you, that you know don't talk about you outside of your own space and to you, who have integrity and value you as a person, and they know everything about you and there's no judgment. It does take time to develop those relationships, okay? Those kind of relationships do not happen overnight. They just don't. One of my closest friends, I sat in a growth group with her for, it would have been longer than 5 years. Last year and this year, we've actually become closer and closer friends. She knew to wait until, well, it's hard to explain it. Showed my hand, or she could see who I was as a person, that I was prepared to keep growing and learning and building myself up in the light before she opened herself up. So we would be friends, but we weren't that close, 2 or 3 friends close. Take that and think about 2 or 3 friends close for you, and it does take time. One of the things I began to do in order to own my mistakes was with my children. I was a single mum for quite a considerable period of time. And even when I was married, it was my responsibility for the children. So what I would do was recognise when I made a mistake by how my children reacted emotionally. I'd go away, I'd think about it, and I might not have all the understanding. And this is more so when they were teenagers. And I would go back, I would apologise, I would basically own my mistake. I taught them from very young how to apologise from the heart. Like they literally had to feel it to mean it. That had to come across, or there was no such thing as an apology. And I would make amends after the apology. So sometimes making the amends meant sitting down, having a conversation with them and actually listening to what happened for them. It meant being willing to hear that I hadn't listened to them or whatever their criticism or observation of me was. You certainly have to drop the attitude which my parents had of, I'm the parent, that's all there is to it, full stop. Basically, you know, zip your lips, go away, I don't want to talk to you, even if it's about anything emotional in your life. Whatever the attitude that was passed down to you by your parents, you have to be willing to own that and drop it. Certainly with my kids, they've given me a lot of grace to be able to say, oh, I didn't realise that, I didn't understand that. Let's face it, we're in such a vastly changing world from the small community I grew up in with no internet, that we have to be able to sit down and see their world. The technical term, if you like, is empathy. We have to be able to be prepared to walk a mile in their shoes, but as parents, we're not their friend. We have to be able to negotiate the road as well. But that builds trust between you and your child. And honestly, if you've got a partner that you can do this with, brilliant. And I wouldn't recommend you being with anyone that you couldn't do it with, because it's trust building. My kids trust me with their life, and I trust them with mine too. But I do trust them with how I feel, and I do trust them with the fact that I can make mistakes. The good thing is, when you have that level of trust, you also are able to laugh. It also teaches your kids that it's okay to say that I'm wrong. And look, I can't emphasize enough how important that is for them, especially in the teenage years, because let's face it, we go through teenagehood and we stuff up. That's part of life. That's how we learn and grow. And the other side of it is, I'm still learning that their life is their own experience. So in having this communication, it allows the level of trust in me to increase, that I can make an observation, but I also teach them to say, Mum, I'm adulting my way. And I go, okay, no worries. Then I don't get involved. It sounds simple, and it is simple, but I don't know that we've ever been taught that either. I certainly wasn't given any examples, but we're getting there. Another part of this in building trust in ourselves is learning that we can experiment with how we're feeling. Now that might sound a bit funny, but sometimes we just don't know. We don't know the words for how I'm feeling. And sometimes we just need somebody who can say, okay, talk to me about it. What's happening? Let's process it. Process it sounds like a chicken factory or a meat factory where you're processing things, but that's what it is. Our emotions need that process so that we can develop them, we can evolve them, we can enlarge upon them, and then we can get them out and go, yes, done. In a way, it's like walking up a mountain. Each step we take, we conquer them and we feel good, and we go, okay, now I understand why I was going down that road repeatedly. I know that in the middle of anxiety, sometimes we just don't know what we're feeling because our head's taking over, but the adult part of us is going, well, no, hang on, this is a bit crazy. And sometimes we need to stop and breathe and ask ourselves the question, what's the emotion underneath the fear? So fear is the primary thing slapping us in the face. We go, no. So put your first aid kit into practice, lean up against the wall, have your drink of water, breathe out, breathe in, and go, what is it down here? Down in my solar plexus. What's the emotion that the fear's trying to bury, which I know that if I can speak it up and out, I can actually deal with it. Ask yourself a lot of questions. It's quite okay. In those days, nobody said boo. To growing into self-awareness where, okay, I'm an adult, I'm allowed to express these emotions. So then everything comes out, and then the self-discipline comes in, so we meet middle ground. Look, it does take time. Please don't give yourself a hard time. It takes time to put even little bits of this into place. The self-discipline around expressing negative emotions is, for me, it was learning to breathe initially. It was learning to remove myself from the situation. It was learning to put a big stop sign in the front of my forehead going, well, if this comes out, it's not productive. I need to sort it out in a logical sequence as to what's happened for me and go from there. That's just a little bit. That's just the beginning of where we start from. Remove yourself from the situation. And look, if you've got a journal, we all should have journals. Trust me on this, that journaling has been my lifesaver. Get the emotions out onto the paper, or go stand in the shower and speak them out if you don't like writing. There are some people who don't like writing. Speak them out in the shower, or go for a walk on the beach, in the forest, speak them out. Get the energy out. Let the energy of the emotion be propelled out of you so that you can get down into your core soul as to what you really want and need out of the situation that triggered you to go off. One of the life-giving parts of developing an authentic self and building your trust is also giving thanks for the hard times. I don't know how long now, but we've certainly had a lot of years of the mantra, gratitude is everything, be grateful, etc., etc. And it's taken me a long time to understand that being grateful for the hard times is where the power is. So when you get all the energy out of you from the negative emotions, give thanks. Build it up inside of you until it's overwhelming that you can give thanks for the hard times. It's challenging to give thanks for the hard times, but it's in the hard times that we grow. We get rid of anything that doesn't serve us, and by that I mean anything that's not productive for our life. We don't need it. But it also builds up a joy in you that you're the conqueror. You're the conqueror of your life situations, circumstances, and so on. And also it helps us when we build that joy to regain hope. Anxiety and depression can take away hope from us that we can have a better life than what we've got now, a better day than what we've got now. I mean, let's face it, sometimes we can't even think about a better tomorrow than today, but we want to rebuild that hope that I can have a better today, I can have a better hour, I can have a better tomorrow if I put in this work. And look, let's face it, when you've got anxiety, depression, and you're just sitting in the corner crying, why not give thanks? Start out loud giving thanks that you're crying and you're in pain. I give thanks for my pain, and build it up, because the more you turn it into a healthier energy than the negative, the more you build into you. You don't build into the brain part where the mental health challenges are. You build into yourself. Hope also helps us remember that our dreams are possible, that each day we have a better hope for our life than what the day before was. So this week, in building our self-trust, we want our affirmation to be, I am authentic. This is super important, especially if you're in a really hard place. I know for many years I was in a really bad marriage, unhealthy emotionally marriage. I couldn't speak my truth. I wasn't allowed to speak my truth. And that sounds funny in today's modern age where everybody seems that they can express an opinion, but in my marriage it was not allowed, and it really bamboozled me, because before I got married I was very independent. You know, if you didn't like me being independent, why did you marry me? But anyhow, so what I did was I poured everything out of me that I couldn't express into my journal. I have spent decades now journaling. Okay, so I started back when I was 20s, in the early 20s, journaling. It does give clarity and it does relieve a lot of the burden. I know anxiety makes you feel like a lot of what I'm talking about is weird. I know I used to think, oh yeah, right, what would you know, when somebody offer wisdom or whatever, different ideas. But in reality, we need the difference. We need to do something different in order to have a different result. In building I am authentic into your life, part of it is recognizing where you don't feel that you can have a voice that's true to you, that you can own, that you're allowed to express your emotions. Another side of it is recognizing where you're hiding your emotions from yourself. That's the challenging part, is recognizing the truth of your emotions, because if you don't recognize the truth of your emotions and what's happening deep down here for you, then you can't learn to trust yourself. You've got to have that breathing space at night where you can sit down and go, how did I really feel compared to how I acted on the outside? That's the first part, really